Hi, I'm Praxilla Taurina. I am from the Kingdom of Artemisia. I am a research nerd, and I really enjoy looking at a variety of things. I know it's been difficult for a lot of people to teach lately. I have found it really fun to get to go through and pull some of my old PowerPoints and show off some of the classes that are a little bit sometimes difficult to do at things like camping events where it's all about the visuals. And this is one of those, because this is all about looking at extant pieces of Venetian glass. We're going to be talking about Venetian betrothal goblets. It's kind of a catch-all term, and we'll get to that. But mostly they are late 15th century through 16th century decorative goblets. And I'm going to show you some fun pictures. And then what will hopefully happen is we will kind of talk about how to kind of fake your own. Obviously, these are masterpieces of Venetian glassware and enamel, and so that's not something you can make at home. But with modern products, there are a few things we can do to kind of fake your own. So we'll talk about that towards the end of this as well. But we're going to start with some extant pieces. So I'm going to start by doing a slideshow and showing you some of my favorite pieces of Venetian goblets. Let's see. Here we go. And let's get this presenting. So Venice, 16th century Venetian glass is really one of the heydays of that. It is technologically the most advanced glass anywhere at the time, well beyond anyone else. It's fantastically gorgeous. It's used for people to show off their status, to used as diplomatic gifts. It's just amazingly beautiful stuff. Glass in Venice. So at the time, glass making is a very, very lucrative profession. There's at least 28 furnaces going in 1581. Those are all on the island of Murano. Beginning in 1291, Venice basically says all glass has to be on the island. The reasoning was fire hazard. That's not really all of the reason, or even a good portion of the reason, but it was a good excuse. They wanted to keep the secrets of the glass all together, where it couldn't be, a glassmaker couldn't take himself off to another country and give them some of this technological information. They wanted to be able to collect tax. There's a lot of reasons why Venice wants their glassmakers all in one place, and they do that. They put them out on the island of Murano. The pretty strict regulation. But glassmakers did get some bonus points, some bonuses for being glassmakers and glassmaking families. The families themselves actually had quite a bit of prestige because they are the keeper of these secrets. Their daughters were able to marry into the nobility. And then innovation is huge and happening. Much of the things for glass that happen, that we still use in glass, that are still used by tradespeople in glass today, if they are doing art glass, are still coming from Venice. There's, the sizes of workbenches, the setups, the types of furnace. I mean, at the time they were using alder and willow as their fuels, and now they're using natural gas, but really not as much has changed as has changed in a lot of other industries. Tools still have a lot of similarities. These sorts of things and innovations that happened at this point are still things that are hallmarks of the art glass industry. In the 15th century, kind of a big deal happens, and this is part of what brings on this amazing glassware. Angelo Beauvoir invents the process for making cristallo. It's a soda glass. It is an absolutely tragic. That was supposed to be fragile, too fragile for cutting or major engraving, but it gilded and enameled really well. They made this beautiful clear glass that no one else could do. No one else was doing clear glass at the time. But it is colorless and absolutely clear. There's no gray, no pink, no amber, no green. If you look at Venetian glass from this period, you know it is Venetian glass. They were the undisputed technological leader. No one else has anything like it until the end of the 17th century. So until about 1673, nobody else has a process that's going to give them a clear glass similar to this. In 1673, there's an English one that isn't real stable. And then into the 1680s, they start, the Bavarians start to do things in leaded glass, and they start their own rise. But Cristallo and clear glass is Venice's technological innovation, and it is the 16th century in glass. Are there any questions so far? Okay, move on. The glass itself is this beautiful clear glass. They're really starting to do a lot of variations in shape. That's happening. So I know when I first started thinking about doing a set of goblets, I was like, well, I need to find this shape. I need to find this particular shape, which isn't at all true. All of these shapes, all of these pieces here, most of the slides in this are from the Corning Glass Museum, which is fantastic. If you have any interest whatsoever in glass, Corning, you need to go look at their online museum. If you can go to their museum, even better. It's obviously not something you can do right this minute. But these are all extant pieces of glass. They look modern. I mean, that last one over there on the right, it looks like something from the 1980s. I think I have goblets in my cabinet that look like the second from the left, but these are all 16th century pieces. Oops. So as I said before, this clear glass isn't great for doing things like heavy duty cutting. You can do some engraving, but it's more like some diamond cuts, but it is all about gilding and all about enamel. And that's really where these betrothal goblets become a thing. So we start to add enamel and play with gilding. Why do I use the term betrothal goblets? Well, for one thing, if you go looking for these, they will be in like Corning, or the Victoria and Albert has some beautiful examples. The British Museum has some great examples, and they will be listed as either betrothal goblets or nuptial goblets or sometimes wedding goblets. What they are is, weddings tend to be a very, when two families are making these negotiations for power. And as part of that, one of the things that tends to happen are some gifts like this, where you will see these fantastic pieces of glass art being commissioned as part of it. In addition to portraiture that happens, things like we get grand parades, and there's, masks and things like that. But another part of the betrothal and marriage ceremonies seems to be the creation of these glass pieces. I think I saw something in chat, but it's not coming up for me right this minute. So I will check it again in a second. But we have some enamel coming here with this portraiture. The blues and greens are also happening and are also part of Venetian glass and are also very, very status worthy as well. The clear is obviously the only thing that the thing that only they can do. But there are other types of prestige glass coming out of Venice at this time. There's a Chalcedony glass that's this amazing mix of colors that looks like carved stone. You'll see a lot of the blue with the cobalt and deep green, and then the Cristallo. So let's see what we got next. Oh, here, we're going to start with one particular and also see how it is affecting from other countries. This is the Beham goblets. They are dated 1495. They are the first example we have of this happened right now exact date. It's not the earliest date, it's not the earliest supposed date, but it is the earliest absolute date. There is a Nuremberg noble, bam, who marries a merchant's daughter, and as part of that, there's this set of goblets or beakers. I believe there are two. One is in the Corning Museum. The other is, I believe, in the V&A. But we have this amazing piece of, right here, we have this amazing heraldry. This is supposed to be an eagle, but the Venetians didn't quite make it real fierce. The gorgeous device, beautiful mantling and the helm and everything else. And that's on one side. And then on the other side, we get a saint, in one case, St. Michael, and in the other, St. Catherine. You can't see her wheel in this picture. It's actually right through here, but most of the gilding, the gold has come off of it, but she's still holding her saint's palm. Another thing I want to point out, because we'll see it in most of this stuff, is these dotted borders, just the dotting, just to add extra. Where we have these super fine painting, but then we also have these nice borders that come to bring everything together. Here's another example where we see, this one is in the V&A. It's dated between 1475 and 1500. It's enamel with applied gold leaf. On one side, we have this gentleman, on the other, his lady. So it's another reason that they call them a nuptial, because this was created at the time as part of a nuptial ceremony. And again, we have these great dots across the top. Here's some more here. This is actually gold leaf. It's been applied, and then it kind of crackles up along the side. Some close-ups of that, just to see. And this is enamel. This is this is painted on with glass and then fired. And they're getting this astounding detail. Here's another example. Also in the Corning Museum. This is a nuptial goblet again, where we have this beautiful portrait piece, and then we have on the other side Cupid. Again, we have the dotting and the gold. Some other ideas that are not quite the same, and I threw these in just to show the vast possibilities. We have some etching with diamonds. This one is from 1586, where they've just taken on the white and etched. Also playing with some color. Again, we have the absolutely clear foot, and then this gorgeous color through the goblet. And again, that's a goblet I've seen at the department store. But that is an extant piece from the 16th century right there. Here's another portrait just to show you some more of that. And again, we see all these this dotting. fabulous little cartouche with the portrait and the foliage, and just astounding. We have some things like popular imagery. For instance, this one, I love this. It's a Venetian woman with her very identifiable Venetian V. She's got her fan. And again, we have this band with the dots. I really like this one just because of the colors. That fantastic blue. Okay, let's see here. Oops. Okay, I'm having a difficult time closing that. Here. An additional one, we have this, some other ideas in addition to like the popular stuff. We have stories like hunting scenes. This one right here is The Triumph of Justice. And again, we have those gorgeous bands done in dotting. The deep blue, the amazing color. We also have some that aren't as specifically pictorial. There are some that are more decorative, like this one, where again, we have the dotting, but we have some, stripes done, some strips, and following the curve and the shape of the glass, and really playing with that, really showcasing it. And then, it's gold, so we have some more of that same type where we just have the decorative. Well, there's no just about it, where we have this fabulous decorative with the amazing gold and the colors, and these are done in, just some squiggles and this gorgeous scaling, but how astoundingly beautiful they look. We also have examples of armorial, the use of heraldry. I'm a herald freak, so I love seeing that, and it's such a part of the betrothal stuff as well, because we are really showcasing those powerful families. We have florals, so the curvilinear lines, and again we have the dotting. I think that's really one of the few things that you see from cup to cup to cup, is that dotting, that playing with those borders seems to be one of the biggest consistencies. Here's another floral. Pictorial, like here we have Holofernes being written. So again, with the stories and hearkening back to ancient Rome and ancient Greece. This one's another very simple heraldic one, where we have just the device in the center, some curly cueing, and a bit of those dotted borders. And it's absolutely fantastic, but it's also something that would be really easy for someone modernly to use that design sensibility and make that one to match your personal SCA heraldry pretty easily. There's not a lot of huge, difficulty to it. Here's another example of that. Another hunting scene where we see the intensity of the craziness of just how amazing these artists are, with the shading and the horse. And yeah, I just kind of sigh over them. Here's one that's a little bit less pictorial, more following pattern. And again, we have those dots and I love this lovely rope through here. Flowers formed. Here's another one where we get a lot of the pattern, but we also have the cartouche. And I also like this one because it's the colors are interesting. There's an addition to making the cristallo, the same person that invented that also invented a milk white glass type. that was supposed to look kind of like porcelain. And this is more along those lines where we get the white and the blue that is so much more opaque. And then all the gold. In addition, and I threw this one in because I thought it was fabulous involving the shape. We see a lot more of these either in earlier beakers that are coming out of Germany or later ones from Bavaria, but we do still get some different shapes like this stein, again painted and enameled up to have these sorts of things on them. I love this one. I wish I had different pictures of it, but this is, you know, part of the masquerade, the people masking and all ready to go play. Again, those popular scenes. But these are all about prestige because this is not cheap. This is not something that you just use for every day. This is an incredible example of an artisan's skill, and you can't get them anywhere other than Venice. And so they go as far away as we saw earlier. They go to Germany, they go to France, they go around the world, and they survive. I think that's what's fabulous too, is these are surviving pieces. These are extant pieces of glass. I can't keep things in my cabinet for the next year. Here's another one. I love this one just with the face on the poor boar. But it's a hunting scene and we have this really intriguing shape. Okay, so that's kind of the survey of what Venetian glass can look like. Are there any questions so far? So basically I've answered the fact that they can look like about anything. Cool. Okay, so we're gonna go on to the second part, which is basically faking your own if you don't want to take up glass and enamel right now. So I'm gonna turn off screen sharing for a minute. We'll come back to this here as well, but why is there we go. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about some of the things that you as a modern individual who does not have a 2000-degree furnace that they're, you know, have running 24 hours a day and can, you know, make your own glass, what you can do at home to give yourself a piece of, to add a little pomp and circumstance and a little extra magic to your own personal dream. So we're going to talk about, you know, faking it. So first of all, you want to pick your glass. And as we just saw, you can pick glassware in a variety of shapes, sizes, everything else. Because in most cases, they were a possibility. Find something that you like that's going to fit your hand, that's going to make you happy. When I can, obviously like the thrift store, I've gone through and found some great goblets. I have really big hands, and so I tend to pick large glasses. These are obviously far and away larger than the extant pieces, which would have been, you know, more like a normal goblet. But I like the larger size. Also, I am not super duper great at doing tiny, teeny, tiny detail. So I tend to do things on larger pieces because I can still get kind of the same feel. So there's things like this, where we have the nice clear, and there's a little bit of a blue cast to this, to the base. Or we have something like this, which has, these are just ones I pulled out of my garage because I am a thrift store freak, but I haven't been in months. So what was ever in my garage is what's in my garage. Something like this, where, remember that that deep cranberry one we saw, where it actually does have the goblet part done in a color. or the entirety of this could be in a color. I pulled this one out because it has the same great shape, but it has a maybe not. So this one has a great shape to it, but it also has these ribs. So that's going to create some problems for me when I go to do my design. Unless I wanted to just do, you know, stripes and dots, I could do that. But this kind of thing would, while it's a great shape on its own, it has some other things that kind of limit what I might want to do with it. Just a super simple glass also would work. This one is a little bit more shaped than I would want, than I probably want it, but also pretty reasonable. I think I got this one at Michael's as one of their candle holders or something for like $3. So there's a lot of options there. You can buy just a set of goblets. You can buy a set of glasses. There are several that I think we saw back there that look more like pint glasses kind of a thing. So pick what you want, what you like. Next up, once you've decided what your piece of glass is, you're going to go with what you're going to, how you're going to put your piece on there. I'm going to go back to sharing again, and we'll talk about some materials. Okay. I love Pebio's Vitria 160. They are a glass paint. They are fabulous. They are sort of the standard for that. I don't have a set with me right now because I thought I did, and then it turns out I can't find them, and I ordered some from Dick Blick and they're not here yet. So I'm going to show you some things that I got from curbside delivery at Michael's earlier in the day. So you have options. You have various things that you can try. So there's the Pebio Vitria, which I really like them. They hold up well. They are really wonderful. You can also use something like an oil-based glass marker. And when I say oil-based, I mean oil-based. Because, for instance, again, let's pull this off. Okay, so I have two sets of paint pens, and I've got paint pens because, again, I am not super great at having an amazing ability to have incredible control with paint. So the fact that I can use pens is actually kind of cool. These are a water-based permanent marker, and they are sold as, they are actually sold as being for on rocks, ceramics. I mean, it's the, you know, the big thing to do rocks these days. So these are one of them. But if you look at them after you purchase it, you will find that it says that it is these are sunproof and water resistant. So these might hold up okay, and they might not. And that's one of those things as well. If you plan to use this a lot, well, that's a different use than they probably would have had in periods, since they were more of a special occasion, if at all, more of a just a, hey, this is super cool and I have a lot of status. But I'm not sure how these are going to hold up to washing. So keep that in mind. I'm not going to super recommend them, but I'm going to give them a try and just to see. But I do know that something like this, which is the deco color, and this is an oil-based, I do know the oil-based hold up pretty well. I haven't had any issues with those peeling or causing an issue. I know that my kids come home from school and he's done a super cool plate with regular Sharpies and it's been baked. But yeah, and Sharpies are one of those other things too that it'll come off. And yes, definitely I would not recommend these things in the dishwasher. Like anything else, like when you do embroidery, hand embroidery on an item or things like that, don't use modern cleaning methods. Just hand wash, be gentle with your thing. But Sharpie, no. You'll see a lot of different tutorials online for using Sharpie and then baking it. I haven't ever seen it actually work. You can use, there are oil-based Sharpie pens and those will work, but regular one I wouldn't recommend. Again, your mileage may vary and you may want to try it anyway. Or you may want to try it and see if you like the look, and if it gets peeled or has a problem, it's not going to bother you. So in that case, awesome. But yeah, try to use the item that is intended for what you're using it for. You can also use acrylic enamels, things like model paints and things like that. Again, if you're going to use that, under no circumstances, put it in the glass or where it's going to contact food. They are not food safe. You don't want to be ingesting that. There are things like, again, this is what I picked up this afternoon, glass paints, which is for glass engraved ceramic, and it can be baked and is supposed to work again. I still wouldn't put that in contact with food. So on the outside of the glass, sure, go ahead and have it on your outside of your glass. But most of these are all going to tell you not food safe. Don't use on things that come in contact with food. And again, don't use in your dishwasher. Don't soak them if you are hand washing, don't soak it. Just be gentle with it. Treat it like the piece of art that it is. Treat it like the fact that you put time into it. Be gentle with it, be careful with it. Let's see. Okay, once you have picked up your various and sundry items that you are using to create your masterpiece, you're going to wash your glass. Just regular wash it. You can put it through your dishwasher at this point, or I have 4 children, so I will make one of them wash it, and then I will wash it again because it will probably still be greasy. Then after you have washed it and it's dried, take some alcohol or vinegar and wipe it down to make sure that there's no any sort of deposit on it, no oil, no. You've cleaned it off and you've made it so that your paint can actually contact your glass. Once again, do not paint on the food surfaces. Even the real ones were really more for the display rather than use, and they were using enamel. But again, this, you've just put some nifty, cool stuff on it. Don't make it harder than it has to be. Don't make it so that you're fighting. This is really more for looks. It's more for prestige. It's more for pomp. It's more to have in the center of your table setting, or have, you certainly can use them to drink from, but it's not the mug you're going to be carting around late night drinking, most probably. Pattern, when you go to do your pattern, and we'll talk about designing, but when you go to pattern, do the pattern on the inside of the glass. And what I mean by that, we'll talk about it in a minute, but mostly you take your paper pattern and put it inside the glass and put it against it, and then you can draw your pattern. And that's what I mean by that. Once you've finished everything else, let it dry for at least a day. And that's if you're using acrylic. If you're using oil-based, more like 5 to 7 days at least, and then bake for whatever your medium recommends. Normally that's about 30 to 40 minutes in a 350 or 375 oven, and that'll solid. Or if you're using the oil, in a lot of cases, they'll just cure on their own. Again, don't soak things. I wouldn't dishwasher or microwave, even if it says it's okay, just because I know I've put some time and effort in here and don't want to use, abuse that. Don't want to have it fall to pieces. For some design suggestions, as we were talking about going through, there's that dotted border. That dotted border would be a fine thing to use as one of your design tools. It would help you get that look because, as we saw, They're everywhere. They're on most of those things, some form of dotted border. Additionally, a dotted border is really super easy to make because you can just take your, you know, depending on the size of your dot, the back of your paintbrush or a eraser on a pencil or a Q-tip, or and just dot it in place on your glass, which is a super, even for those of us that don't have intense painting skills, that's something we can manage. Using your arms or your heraldry is always kind of cool. I like that part of it. I'm a heraldry freak. I like seeing heraldry in use, and this is a great place to use it. This is a very appropriate place to use it. We certainly have documentable examples of how this is used. So this would be a fabulous time for you to haul out your device, or to haul out you and whoever, you know, your friend's device, or you and your house's device, or whatever it is you wanted to put there. When you're going to pattern it, wrap your glass in paper, and I normally do it on the inside of the glass, where I take a piece of paper and I kind of put it in there to give myself the general height and shape and the kind of the conic shape of my paper. And then I pull it out, and then I can start drawing and designing what I'm going to design. Like we said before, when we were looking at this blue glass with the bumps, if you can, pay attention to that sort of thing, because it's going to make design choices for you. If you can avoid painting on them, great. If you have to, consider stripes or dots or other super simple things that you're not going to be trying to paint a horse on it. Try out some ideas with a dry erase marker or on your glass. You can do that, or Sharpie, and then take some alcohol to clean it off. There's also a lot of different tutorials online for transferring using like packing tape or other ways of using your printer to transfer. I have not used any of those, but I know they are out there if you want to look for that, so that you can get a more exacting pattern on something. I tend to just draw. And stencils are also nice, just nice shapes, especially if you want to have a repeating pattern of some kind. And then I just pulled out some of my heraldry to talk about if we want to talk about how to actually design one of these. All right, are there any questions? Any other things I can answer right now? I had thought maybe we'd pull out some of the things, some design ideas, and pull it out, but it's looked like we probably only, well, probably don't have time to actually do one, because again, it's going to take a while, but we could probably do a little bit of design work if we wanted to. Is anyone interested in that, or do we want to just be done for now? What's the consensus? Do you want to watch me figure out what I want to draw on my cup, or are we just going to go with the, because that's probably not what I was. Okay, all right, cool, we'll try that then. Okay, so I'm going to take a piece of paper, and here's my cup. This is just a weird setup for trying to do this, so, which is why I hadn't actually planned to do it in this particular setup, but we'll give it a shot. Okay, here's my cup, here's my paper. I'm going to take my paper, kind of roll it, kind of a cone thing. I'm going to put it in there. I'm going to kind of spread it out. So I know I now know I need to be shorter than this. So we'll kind of cut that out. And you know, you could take actual dimensions, but unfortunately, because you're not dealing with squares, it gets a little bit harder. So I'm using regular tracing paper because that's what I had in hand, but you could totally use computer paper, whatever you had. I'm just using tracing paper because that's what I had. So I'm going to kind of cut this in a little bit of an angle because I know that I need a cone. All right. So I'm still a little tall. Okay. All right. So now I have, you're not going to get an exact pattern. It's just not going to happen. At least I'm sure that there are people that can do exact mathiness, and I am not that person. But it's about there. Then I'm going to take my, figure out my diameter, you know, my diameter so that I can cut it in about half. And yeah, I don't have a ruler. I have various forms of measuring tapes. Okay. So about 5. So center is going to be about 2.5. That's my center right there. Okay. So this is there and about half of what I need for a pattern. So that gives me my design space, and that's what I'm doing with this now. Is I'm using it as a design space. So I know I can't make anything larger than this. This is, especially if I'm going to do like a cartouche or something in the center, it needs to be within this particular area. Okay, so next up, let's go back and look at, just again, because I want to play with my heraldry. So this is my full achievement because I had it out yesterday because it was heraldry day. This is my household badge. It's kind of cool looking. It might look cool in a goblet. Or this is one of my badges. That might be fun, although painting the Ver might kill me. But you know, maybe I could use this as part of the border, or like put a large version of something in the center of a cartouche and have this blank to the sides. Here's one of my badges. I like the flying pig, but I don't think I want to paint that today. This is my device. So anyway, these are some ideas that I have because this is my heraldry and I want to use my heraldry. So I'm gonna play with those sorts of ideas. Okay. So I've got my paper here. I know this is about half my total design area. So if I want to keep it symmetrical, I'm going to put, if I want to put 2 cartouches, I'm putting one on the front and then a second one on the back, or something along those lines. So I think what I want to do in this case is I Thank you for coming. I think what I want to do in this case is I want to do one of those dot bands. I want to have one of those. So I'm going to mark myself out some area for that. And I don't want it clear right at the top because, again, this is not an exact. So I want to give myself a little bit down from the top. And I'm going to mark myself out a couple of lines for where I want to put my border. And in this case, I think I'm going to do just, some gold across there and some blue dots. So I don't need to put that in my pattern because that will happen when I actually paint it, especially because I'm just painting dots. But I need to make sure it'll leave space for that. Okay, so I want one of those. Now the next question is, do I want a second one on the bottom? Yeah, sure, why not? Let's look at the shape of this. Oops. We're using this one. Let's look at the shape of this. I don't want to be dealing with the bottom of the bowl here anyway. So I want to go up. I want to maybe right in here. I want a line, and then I've got a line up here. So that again has cut down how much space I have to design in. This is way too high that way, so we're going to cut some of the bottom off just to make it fit a little bit better. Yeah, this is obviously a very exact science. As I said, in most cases, I just draw on the thing, or I'll draw my piece of heraldry. So I'll draw, like if I was going to do this on with the heraldry cartouche, I would draw like the round and know I wanted something, to fit here. And I would just draw that up and put it on. Well, put it on and then draw it in place and then draw around it. I'm sure that there are much more brilliant ideas on how to do that, but that's how I do it. So I know that I want that about there. And oops, it's about here. And I want a second band. Oh, let's go right about there. Keeping my finger in place, highly important measuring tools. This is a lot easier when I'm sitting at a kitchen table. I follow those curves, and now I have my lines for where I'm going to put those, and I've also narrowed down my space for what I'm going to design. And in this case, I think I'm just going to do a basic heater shield because we saw a lot of those. We saw several of those with the heater and the device, and then some swirliness. So actually, I think I'm not even going to do the hair. I think I'm going to do that badge, that my sea black, because it would look nice there. So I've got my sea black in place, and I can figure out how to draw there. I can kind of mock in where I want to put my swirls, draw it up in a heavier marker so I can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to put it inside my cup. And I'm going to draw it with Sharpie. And this will come off with alcohol. So this is just a temporary line. Okay, and so now I have my guideline for painting. And that's really about it. You can get super, and if I want to do it on the other side, because this is a double-sided thing, I do the same thing. If I want to do a different pattern on the other side, I draw something different. And if you need the guides, if you want the guides to be really super specific, draw them up. If not, you know, kind of mock out your spacing and go for it. And I know that's real non-specific, but I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is what these things look like. We have a good idea of what they look like and transferring that sensibility into making one of your own using modern pieces. So, and we are almost out of time, but are there any questions? I know this last part was kind of half-assed, but any questions I can answer or anything else you want to talk about? All right, thank you guys too, and I appreciate you hanging with me and looking at pretty pictures of gorgeous goblets. Again, I cannot recommend enough going to the Corning Museum of Glass and just flipping through their collection. It's astounding, and it'll waste a day or two for you. All right, thank you so much. I'm gonna shut this down and